Flying through the night is a mammal unlike any other. This creature has warm blood and fur, but still flaps its wings through the darkness in search of food. Its leathery wings are accurately controlled by forelimbs as it tracks down prey using kind of echolocation. Bats, a member of the group Chiroptera, are truly amazing creatures, and they have captured the interest and imagination of the public and scientific community for years. Evolution of bats. Where did bats come from? As dictated by such scientists as Charles Darwin, all animals have evolved from a certain ancient ancestor. Bats are mammals, which means their lineage traces directly to the few hair-covered animals that scurried out of their burrow after the dinosaurs became extinct millions of years ago. Bats are the only mammal that can actively fly. Their wings contain a movable wrist with 4 fingers, somewhat similar to biological model humans exemplify, and contain an almost identical number of bones in each finger, says Ron Little, writer of Bats and Evolution. Within the Chiroptera groups of bats, furthermore, exists great diversity. Microbats, a type of bat with small body and wingspan, differ from their larger cousins. These bats have teeth designed for the eating of prey, including flies and other small bugs, and rely on echolocation. In addition to the size, the wing shape of bats differ greatly. This characteristic has evolved throughout bats of varying environments which require different flight characteristics from the animal. How natural selection acts as the primary mechanism for change. Natural selection, or the ability of the environment to weed out the inferior or unsuitable organisms, plays just as active of a role in the evolution of bats as it does for other animals. Bats reproduce at an active rate and produce many offspring each generation in order to compensate for inevitable population loss due to disease, starvation, and other calamity. Each bat offspring is different. Bat genes mutate and change to a myriad of other environmental factors, resulting in variations of genetic code that are passed to the next generation. Some of these mutations are beneficial and allow the bats who possess mutated genes which allow them to better survive and pass superior genes to the next generation. Bats that have inferior mutated genes die off and never pass on their inferior genes to the next generation. Bats that did not exemplify the traits needed to catch their prey or sustain themselves died off and did not pass on their genetic traits to the next generation. As a result of this natural selection over many generations, the population of bats as a whole changed and better adapt to survival within the environment they inhabit. Important evidence. Fossil evidence. Deep within the Green River Formation of Wyoming, paleontologists unearthed 2 fossil finds which serve critical roles in tracing the ancestral lineage of bats. One of the most important fossils was Icaronecteris, a fossil that showed that the very first bats were at least 52.5 million years old. The first bats shared many of the same body parts that bats have today, like similar fingers, forearms, and legs. The next used fossil find, Onychonecteris, displays how the original bats were affected by natural selection and speciation and connects the original bats to the bats that exist nowadays. This fossil provides the first example of bats having 5 fingers like terrestrial animals and shorter limbs. Additionally, the 33.5 million year old bat showed the first signs of powered flight with longer fingers and a very strong collarbone. Structural homologies. Homology is defined as the reoccurrence of the same organ or structure in different animals under every variety of form and function. Scientists observe, for example, the structure of a bat's wings, a seal's flipper, a cat's paw, and a human's hand have similar structure to one another in regard to the arrangement of bones and muscles. The homology of the comparison between bats' wings and humans' fingers shows that a continuity of traits is present amongst mammals. Moreover, the evolution of bat shapes how the wings of the bat differ. Molecular evidence. A protein referred to as BMP or bone morphogenic protein alters the finger length of bats and catalyzes the further mutations of bats. Bats produce large quantities of this protein, which explains why a few fossils can be found tracing bats to an ancient ancestor. Geographic distribution. The ancestors of bats are a group of animals called the Lariciaria. Although members of this group started as small squirrel-sized creatures, they evolved into a very diverse group of animals, including whales, anteaters, hedgehogs, moles, and bats. This group also shows that bats' geographic origins are in Laurasia, a supercontinent that was comprised of North America, Europe, and Asia. Laurasians lived in Laurasia during the Cretaceous period about 65 million years ago. Unfortunately, there are no fossil finds that connect bats to the groups of animals in this time period, but extensive DNA tests and genetic analyses have proven this connection. Embryologic evidence. Scientists have proven bats evolved from a creature that had no wings. Therefore, over successive generations of adaptation and evolution, bats have grown wings. Speciation. Speciation, or the evolutionary process through which new biological species rise, takes place through means including population isolation, mutation, natural selection, and reproductive barriers. Population isolation occurs when one population is separated from one another, and the 2 groups go on to evolve and adapt to the different environments they now inhabit. Mutation of genes caused by either natural or artificial influence affect the traits of subsequent generations who inherited the altered genetic material. Natural selection refers to the influence of an organism's environment determining if the traits of the organism possesses what it allowed to survive and pass on its genetic code or die off. Finally, reproductive barriers signify influences which cause only certain members of a species to reproduce apart from another group, thus over time resulting in variation between the 2 population groups. These factors undoubtedly affect bats, in addition to all other organisms, as proven by the intense variety among and between different kinds of bats all around the world. Through population isolation, mutation, selection, and reproductive barriers, all bats have evolved and adapted to survive in whatever environment they happen to inhabit. Importance of evolution to you. The development of vaccines and medicine is greatly dependent on in-depth understanding of evolution. Bats consume different kinds of plants and animals and are prone to disease other mammals like humans are susceptible to. Furthermore, bats develop defenses to these microbial menaces through evolution, inventions of which serve as models from which biologists and scientists may be able to extract and use to engineer human applicable medicines. Consequently, someday in the near future, if you or I contract a deadly virus, bat-derived vaccine may save our lives. Inferring personal decision-making. Evolution can affect the outcome of some legal battles, court cases, and convictions, such as in the case of Louisiana v. Schmidt, where evolution is used to determine a doctor is guilty of first-degree murder for injecting a woman with HIV-positive blood. Study of evolution can be a deciding factor in whether or not one should receive a vaccine and how the vaccine will react with a certain virus or bacteria. The development of a new vaccine is dependent almost solely on the understanding of evolution.